I love pushing limits and chasing danger, but today we're not doing a stunt, we're taking a journey. I'm standing at the edge of roads that make even the most seasoned drivers think twice. These aren't just routes on a map, they're tests of courage, skill, pure luck. I want you to feel that chill in your spine as we drive into places where one mistake can end everything. There's something almost magnetic about danger seen from the safety of a screen. But I promise you the stakes behind these hairpin turns tunnels, ice-frozen highways are real. We'll hear local stories, see nail-biting footage and learn why people who live or work here respect these roads the way sailors respect storms. If you've ever wondered what makes a road truly terrifying, you're about to find out. I won't sugarcoat it. I stood at the lip of the mountain and realized single lane was an insult. The North Youngest Road clings to cliffs so sharp they make your palms sweat. One lane carved into the Andes with sheer drops hundreds of meters down and no guardrails that could stop a slipping truck. I felt exposed, like being on a tightrope with a pickup truck. Fog here is a living thing. It creeps in, eats distances, and turns certainty into guessing. Drivers learn to listen as much as they drive. The sound of an engine, the scrape of rock, the dull thud of stones dislodging. Visibility drops to zero, and your brain screams, stop, but the road forces you onward. That immediate danger is why even professional drivers feel their hearts race. If you look at the accident stats, the numbers are brutal and almost unbelievable. Hundreds of fatalities in the years before improvements. Locals call it, death road, and they don't say it lightly. The steep slopes, loose gravel, and speeding buses have a history of tragedy. For many families, the road is both lifeline and threat. Guides who know the route treat every trip like a test of survival. They use techniques passed down through years, like egg in the mountain wall, timing passes in blind corners. These aren't just tricks, they're ritualized skills that keep people alive. When I talked to a veteran guide, his hands trembled when he described nights trapped in fog. Buses squeeze through spaces you'd never expect, inching by on the edge where one miscalculation means freefall. I watched drivers give way at hairpin turns, whispering apologies and offering prayers. There's an unspoken code, patience, and the constant awareness that the margin for error is microscopic. The geology itself conspires against drivers. Rain and erosion loosen boulders, the road narrows as the mountain gives way. During wet season, chunks of asphalt vanish or slide, and people adapt by reducing speed to a crawl. Eyes forward, hands white on the wheel. It's a slow, tense procession of survival, but there's also an odd humanity here. Tourists come for the adrenaline, bikers for the bragging rights, and locals for daily life. I met a woman who bicycled this route regularly. She told me how every turn was a story of near misses and the resolve to keep moving. It forced me to respect not just the danger, but the resilience. Visiting that road taught me the difference between controlled thrills and real peril. Here, danger is not simulated, it's the terrain. Every meter is a negotiation between man and mountain. And the scariest part? The road still carries people every day. When I left, I felt small and oddly grateful. Grateful that so many had learned to make peace with that edge, and troubled by the knowledge that one lapse can erase years of life in an instant. I remember the first shot, a razor-thin tunnel punched through a vertical face of rock, carved by hands and hammers. The Guoliang Tunnel Road starts as legend, villagers chiseling their way through sheer rock, and becomes cinematic terror. Driving inside feels like being inside a living, breathing mountain. The walls sweat dust, and outside the world is 1,000 feet of open air. The tunnel is narrow, often one vehicle wide, with windows carved into the rock like watching holes to the abyss. Those windows are beautiful, but treacherous. They let you see the drop, but not the safety to stop. Wind funnels through, and when a truck passes, the echo can fool your sense of distance. You're acutely aware that the rock above you is only as stable as its last quiver. The Guoliang Tunnel is a triumph of communal daring. Villagers literally dug their future with hammers and raw determination. They decided to make a road where none existed. That history makes every inch of this route hum with stubbornness. It's not just infrastructure, it's proof that necessity sometimes trumps fear. But the hands that built it were vulnerable. The carved ceilings and jagged edges betray the improvised nature of the work. Rockfalls are no myth here, loose chunks sometimes rain down, and every car wears small scars where stone kissed metal. Passing is a ballet, mirrors tucked in, breath held. Small miracles happening every time two vehicles meet without catastrophe. I felt like an intruder in a place where every meter required a tiny miracle. Sunlight slicing through narrow windows, dust motes dancing in shafts of light, the shadow of the mountain falling across the road like an enormous hand. It's breathtaking and mortifying at once. I found myself both awestruck and oddly claustrophobic. Families who used this tunnel to reach markets, children who would peer out the windows to see the world, elders who still tell the tale of when the first chisel struck stone. That human story makes the danger personal. This was never built as a thrill ride. It was built because life demanded it. Modern tourists come for Instagram shots of the windows and the sheer theater of the cliff face, but the soul of the road remains the villagers' labor. They still maintain it, and their stewardship is what keeps it usable. I left grateful for their bravery, and a little guilty for the way cameras turn survival into spectacle. Driving out through the last window, the light hits you like a rebirth. You smile because you made it, and you feel the weight of the mountain behind you, a carved, dangerous monument to what people will do to connect with each other. Chapter 3. The Dalton Highway stretches like a cold artery across the Alaskan wilderness, long, relentless, and indifferent. This road isn't dramatic because of cliffs or tunnels, but because of absolute isolation. Miles of tundra-biting wind and emptiness that presses against you. I drove it and realized how thin civilization is when the thermometer drops and help is miles away. Winter here is not a season, it's a wall. Ice forms fast and thick black ice hiding under snow, turning straightaways into traps. Visibility can evaporate into whiteouts. Trucks carry everything: supplies, fuel. When a big rig lurches on ice, it's a catastrophe that leaves you stranded in temperatures that will kill you faster than you can blink. Services are sparse to the point of being fictional. Gas stations become legends. A closed sign could be fatal. I met truckers who plan routes like military operations, fueling at every opportunity, carrying spares, rehearsing emergency protocols. On the Dalton, you don't wing it, you prepare like your life depends on it. Heavy truck traffic is another cruel variable. These behemoths dominate the road. Passing one in storm conditions is a gamble. They kick up wind and snow. Their weight means they rarely stop or adjust. I watched a convoy create a moving wall of pulverized snow that followed us for miles. Isolation amplifies small problems into big ones. A flat tire becomes a test of survival skills. A dead engine is a countdown. Cell signals disappear. Like a bad dream, rescue can take hours or days. That knowledge sits in your chest the whole time you're driving. Even with satellite phones, the landscape is the boss, yet people live and work here by choice or necessity. This is home. They've adapted procedures, built caches of supplies, learned to read ice and sky. Their calm, methodical approach to danger felt like a religion. For me, the Dalton was less about spectacular precipices and more about respect for the elements. Cold that saps energy, wind that steals control, miles of nothing that can swallow you in minutes. It's survival at 45 miles per hour. When the sun finally broke through the clouds, the Alaskan interior glowed like glass. The beauty didn't reduce the danger, it only underscored how fragile human life is against this scale of nature. I left with my mind sharpened from the slow, steady pressure of traveling through a place that demands competence, planning, and humility. Chapter 4. Skipper's Canyon Road. Your vehicle feels too big, the world feels too small. Carved along sheer rock walls, this gravel track throws hairpin turns at you with no barrier between your tires and the drop. It's not flashy. There are no tunnels, no massive cliffs, but the intimacy of the exposure makes it bone-chilling. The gravel under your wheels moves like an unruly animal. One wrong corner, one overzealous throttle, and the car will slide toward the void. Add to that single-lane sections, where meeting another vehicle requires backing for ages, and you've got a constant negotiation of space and patience. The sound of scraping stones becomes background suspense. Skipper's has gold mining origins, and that history is visible. Hand-built bridges, narrow cuttings, and the persistent feeling that men once risked everything for promise down below. That past adds a ghostly presence. You can almost hear the pickaxes in the wind. Locals will tell you stories of miners and tragedies, and it colors every mile. Guided caution is mandatory for a reason. I drove with a local guide. And every blind corner he taught me to read the road. Which corners keep their gravel where the primary fall lines exist, and the exact moments to feather the clutch or feather the brakes. Without expertise, the gravel can betray you. Weather can convert the road from risky to impossible. In an hour, rain turns gravel to slurry mud, to slipping treachery, and visibility can drop behind a curtain of spray. In places with no barrier, that's all it takes. The guide's calm kept me steady as we inched past ledges, where a small miscalculation would have been catastrophic. The canyon itself is narrow and dramatic. One side is the rocky wall, the other a steep fall to the river below. From certain points you can see the water racing far beneath, a soothing sight that feels dangerously distant. The juxtaposition of beauty and peril is constant, and it builds a kind of reverent fear. Local drivers treat the road like a living beast. They respect its moods and never try to dominate it. I watched an experienced driver yield without complaint, backing up for a good 10 minutes to let another vehicle pass. That culture of mutual survival fascinated me. Driving skippers forced me to slow down in a way I wasn't used to. The gravel puts a premium on small corrections and steady nerves. Aggressive inputs become mistakes. There's a humility in that slow, careful movement that forces you to be present with every rock, every shadow, every breath. When we finally exited the canyon, the relief was intense, but quiet. The guide smiled, the kind of tired smile that says we both got to keep our stories, and those stories, like the canyon, feel like a narrow victory after a long, tense trial. Chapter 5. The Leh Manali Highway is not just a road, it's a battle with altitude weather the mountains temper. Driving here means negotiating passes that scrape the sky where air is thin and engines struggle and people struggle. Every ascent feels like pulling breath from a smaller and smaller balloon, and that strain turns ordinary mistakes into life-threatening ones. Landslides are frequent and brutal. The highway snakes along slopes that loosen with rain, slopes loosen with snow. Entire sections can vanish overnight. I witnessed a repair crew working feverishly to re-establish a stretch after a slide. They moved like ants against a monstrous collapse. The uncertainty of the ground beneath your wheels is a constant threat. Unpredictable weather is a main villain. 1 hour the sun dazzles the next. A squall of snow and sleet erases lanes, breaking distances shrink to fantasy. Drivers must be masters of contingency. Chains, extra fuel, medical kits, readiness to stop for days. I learned that flexibility is survival here. Narrow mountain sections provide no margin for error. Many parts of the road drop steeply with little to no roadside protection. Passing is nerve-wracking. I watch local truck drivers hug the inside line and pray. Low oxygen adds an invisible danger. Altitude sickness can incapacitate even experienced travelers. Headaches, dizziness, confusion, they compound the risk of a fatal decision. I felt the lightheadedness creep in myself on a high ridge. That invisible hazard makes everything harder. Rescue is complicated by remoteness. An accident here does not attract immediate help. Response times stretch into hours. Helicopters are sometimes the only option. They depend on weather windows. You are, in practice, your own first responder. Yet, there's a fierce beauty that hooks you in. Areas of the highway open to high plateaus, glacial lakes that look unreal. The culture of mountain communities blends resilience, hospitality. I spoke to locals who accept the risk because the road connects them to markets, families, medical care. That human necessity gives the route meaning beyond peril. The highway is an expedition more than a commute. Prepare, respect, move carefully. It's not for the faint of heart. I left with my lungs slightly thin and my respect for high-altitude roads dramatically increased. They test not just skill, but the very biology of the traveler. In the end, Leh Manali is a reminder that on such roads, nature always holds the upper hand. We adapt, and sometimes that adaptation is enough to carry us through. We just drove 5 roads that force you to confront something raw and ancient, the sheer power of geography and how people respond to it. Each route demanded different skills: breath control in the Himalayas, patience on gravel, the will to keep moving through fog, the communal fortitude of a hand-carved tunnel, the survival mindset of an Arctic highway. I came away humbled. Danger on these roads isn't entertainment, it's reality for the folks who depend on them. The stories I heard were filled with loss, ingenuity, stubborn persistence. I